Okay, so are we ready to jump into this deep dive?
Let's do it.
Okay, great. Let's see. So you sent over this document, Kwaku Mamphey's "You Are Not the Sacrifice," and wow, lot to unpack here.
Yeah, looks like it.
It seems like we're going to be looking at faith and identity and challenges and how to overcome those challenges.
Yeah, it seems like all of that is kind of tied in with this idea of you are not the sacrifice.
Right, exactly. And it's interesting, too, because the sources that you've gathered here are kind of all over the place.
Yeah, quite a mix.
We've got some Bible verses in here from Genesis, and then there's, definitions of sacrifice and faith,
Yeah.
and even some personal anecdotes from the author's own life.
Right, and they even bring up Tyler Perry at some point.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, what's Tyler Perry doing in this document?
Right. It's interesting how they tie that in, but I think it works.
Yeah, it's kind of like a personal pep talk, but then infused with all this, biblical wisdom. So
Yeah, it's a good blend.
should be interesting.
What I find really fascinating is how they weave together personal growth with spiritual reflection.
Right.
Like it really encourages us to question what we believe about ourselves and about the world around us.
Yeah. And speaking of questioning, the author kind of jumps right into this idea of faith as the foundation for everything. And they define faith as being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see.
That's a good definition.
It is. It's a really good definition. And it makes you think about those times when you've had to just take a leap of faith.
Absolutely.
Even when it didn't make sense logically.
Right. And to illustrate this point, they bring up the story of Abraham being asked to sacrifice his son Isaac.
Oh, gosh, that's intense.
Talk about an impossible situation.
Right.
But Abraham's unwavering faith, his absolute belief that God would provide, is a powerful example.
Yeah. It's almost like saying, okay, I don't get it. I don't understand how this is going to work, but I trust that it will.
Right. Exactly. Surrendering to something bigger than ourselves, even when it doesn't make logical sense.
And it's interesting how they connect this ancient story, this is way back in the Old Testament, to their own personal experience in Ghana, where they talk about this woman who receives a house.
Oh, yeah.
Through prayer and faith.
Powerful story.
Even though she has no means to afford it.
Yeah. Have you ever experienced anything like that where belief seems to shape reality?
That's a good question. I think so. I mean, I've definitely had those moments where it's like, wow, I can't believe that just happened.
Right.
I was kind of hoping for it and praying for it, but
it's almost like magic sometimes.
it is. It really is. And that story really speaks to the whole idea of manifesting, this idea that our thoughts and beliefs can actually influence our lives.
Absolutely. And there are psychological explanations for this, of course, like the power of positive thinking and the law of attraction and all of that. But the document is definitely framing this within a spiritual context.
It is. Yeah, it really makes you wonder how much of what we experience is shaped by what we believe is possible.
Yeah, for sure.
And that leads us perfectly into this next section, which is really about truly understanding God, not just blindly following,
Yeah.
The author uses this analogy of not even recognizing their own middle name, Odem, for years.
Oh, yeah. I love that analogy.
It's so good. It's like we can be around something or someone without truly knowing them.
Right. It's like going through the motions of religion without a real connection.
Exactly. And it highlights the importance of going deeper.
Yeah. Going beyond the surface.
When it comes to our relationship with God, and it reminds me of what Jesus said in John 14:9.
Okay.
Where he says, "Don't you know me, Philip, even after I have been among you such a long time? Anyone who has seen me has seen the Father."
Powerful.
It's about seeking a deeper understanding, not just following rules or rituals.
Right. It's not just about showing up. It's about truly connecting.
Yeah, and that deeper connection, I think, can empower us to respond to God's call even when we feel totally unqualified.
Right. And they talk about Gideon.
Gideon.
From the book of Judges.
Yeah.
He was called a mighty warrior, even though he felt totally inadequate for the task.
Oh, man. I think we've all felt that at some point.
For sure.
Like, wait, are you sure you have the right person?
Yeah, right. It's like that imposter syndrome, where we doubt our own abilities even when we're successful.
Totally. And it's interesting how the document talks about this sense of mistaken identity, like not recognizing our true potential. And it makes me wonder, how do we overcome that feeling of inadequacy?
Yeah, good question.
How do we step into our calling when we feel like we're not enough?
Right. And the document suggests that sometimes our true identity, our purpose, is revealed over time.
Okay.
And often in an unexpected way. It's like the author talks about being called Osopho.
Which means?
Which means pastor or man of God long before they ever considered a path in ministry.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
Right, it's like your destiny is unfolding even when you don't realize it.
It really is. And speaking of unfolding destinies, the document then shifts to this idea of facing challenges head on, but also choosing your battles wisely.
Right.
And they use some pretty vivid examples like Moses.
Moses, yeah.
Here's a guy who's basically a fugitive, and suddenly God's calling him to lead the Israelites out of Egypt.
What pressure.
Talk about pressure.
Yeah,
Right?
it puts our everyday problems into perspective.
It really does, and I think it emphasizes the importance of answering the call even when it seems overwhelming.
Absolutely.
We all have those moments where we're called to step outside of our comfort zones to do something that seems bigger than ourselves.
And sometimes that call comes with some serious opposition.
Right.
Like they talk about this songwriter who compared pursuing his dreams to facing blood-tasty vampires.
Oh my gosh, that's intense.
Right. But I think it captures the courage it takes to go after what you believe in.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we have to fight for our dreams.
Yeah, but it's not always about charging into battle, is it?
Right. Good point.
They also talk about Elijah the prophet who runs away from Queen Jezebel when she threatens his life.
That's a great example. It highlights the importance of discernment.
Yeah.
And knowing when to fight and when to retreat.
Right.
Sometimes stepping back strategically is the wisest move.
Yeah, it's like recognizing that we can't win every battle, but we can choose which ones are worth fighting.
Yeah. Be strategic with your energy.
And that brings us to the heart of it all. You are not the sacrifice. This seems to be like the core message of this whole document.
Absolutely.
Right.
It's about rejecting the idea that we have to be victims. That we have to sacrifice our well-being, our dreams, our integrity just to appease others or fit in.
Yeah, it's like saying you have a choice. You don't have to play the victim.
Exactly. And to illustrate this, they bring up the story of Barabbas.
Oh, Barabbas.
This condemned criminal who's unexpectedly released in place of Jesus.
Wow. Yeah, what a story.
Have you imagined being in his shoes, condemned to death with no hope left?
That's heavy.
And yet, through this bizarre twist of fate, he's set free while Jesus takes his place.
It's like the ultimate substitution.
Right, the innocent taking the place of the guilty.
And the author uses this story to drive home the point that we are not meant to be victims.
Right.
We have a choice in how we define ourselves and how we face the challenges that life throws at us.
Exactly, we're not powerless.
Yeah, even if you feel like you're on death row, even if you've made terrible mistakes.
Right.
There's still that possibility of redemption, of a fresh start.
Powerful stuff.
It really is. And they connect this to their own personal experiences with superstitious sacrifices growing up and how those beliefs can create this atmosphere of powerlessness. Like we're being controlled by unseen forces.
Like feeling trapped by a system you didn't create.
Exactly. And they emphasize that true faith in God can break those chains, can set us free from that kind of fear.
Yeah, it's not just about believing in God. It's about understanding what that belief empowers us to do.
Right, to reclaim our power, our agency, and to choose to believe that we're worthy of love, forgiveness, a life lived on purpose.
And they even bring up this concept of walking bulletproof.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. I was like, what does that even mean?
It's a strong image, right?
Yeah.
But I think you're using it metaphorically.
Okay.
They're talking about the resilience and inner strength that we can find in our faith.
So it's like we develop this spiritual armor.
Yeah, a kind of internal fortitude that helps us withstand the blows that life throws at us.
Because life does throw a lot at us.
It does. It does. And they even quote Ephesians 6:11, which talks about putting on the full armor of God to stand against the schemes of the devil.
So it's a reminder that we're not alone in this fight. That we have access to a spiritual power that can protect us and guide us.
And they even bring up the story of David and Goliath.
Oh, yeah. Classic.
The shepherd boy facing down this giant warrior with just a sling and a few stones.
What an underdog story.
And they highlight David's unwavering faith, his absolute conviction that he's fighting on the side of righteousness. He even says, "You come to me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of heaven's armies."
Yeah, that's the kind of confidence that only comes from a deep trust in something bigger than yourself.
Absolutely. But remember, it's not just about facing down external enemies.
Right.
This walking bulletproof idea applies to our internal battles as well.
Oh, so like those negative thoughts that can creep in?
Exactly. The limiting beliefs, the voices of others trying to put us down or hold us back. It's about cultivating that spiritual and emotional resilience that helps us deflect those attacks.
So it's like building an internal shield
of
faith to protect us from both external and internal threat.
You got it. And that shield is a gift from God, accessed through our faith and our surrender to his will.
Wow. This is already shifting my perspective, honestly. This document, it just offers a whole new way to think about facing challenges and living a life of purpose.
I'm right there with you. And there's even more to unpack.
Okay.
They go on to talk about waiting on God and the importance of patience.
Oh, yeah.
Which can be tough in our, instant gratification world.
It really can be.
And they bring up the story of Daniel, known for his unwavering faith and his commitment to prayer, even when things got tough.
Okay, can't wait to dive into. This is definitely living up to its name, this deep dive.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll be right back after a quick break to finish our deep dive into Kwaku Mamphey's You Are Not the Sacrifice.